Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. I'm Napasa Pradhan, and I'm very thrilled to have you join us today on another episode. And today we'll be delving into crucial insights on immigration with an esteemed guest. I'm sure you're very excited and you have your parts and maybe some clarifications to make, some questions for us, maybe. So I'm very excited about this whole webinar that we're going to have today, and excited actually even more because we are going to have our guest revisit us once again. And he is none other than this excellent immigration attorney, Chand Parvathaneni. And he brings a wealth of knowledge through his expertise to our discussion. And I'm confident that today's session is also going to be a very, very informative one. So, yes, without further ado, please help me welcome our guest, Chand Parvathaneni. Hi.
Hello, Nipasa, and hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me, and hope we'll have a very informative session today on the H1B topics.
Absolutely. I'm very excited, Chan. Thank you so much for joining us. And our topic for today is unlocking the H1B lottery, insights and next steps in filing as well. As you all know, the H1B lottery is on. It's a week now, more than a week now. And I'm sure, Chan, you have some updates as well from your own side about it. Would you like to tell us what's going on there?
Sure. So the H1B registration started last week, and at our law firm, we're already at a couple thousands of registrations. We're almost adding data. We are seeing a lot of demand even this year. And what that means is definitely we're going to see a lottery. Initially, I think I was a little bit skeptical because we saw a lot of layoffs in January and December, and I was wondering how things will be this year. But looking at the hiring trends in the last month or so, looking at the transfers, extensions, and so on, looks like I think the markets again are slowly turning around. And I think we are seeing that in the H1B registrations. We are seeing a lot of demand. We are seeing a lot of our clients having us file registrations on their behalf. And we already are working through a lot of data, a few thousands of registrations. And to us, it looks like things are going on. Things are smooth. They changed the process a little bit this year. They changed the portal a little bit this year. That being said, nothing drastic in terms of the process. So we've been doing the registrations, and for a few that everything is good, we have been paying the fees, getting the registrations done. And so I think I'll use this show to explain how things happen, how you can verify if your submission is done, precautions to take, and so on. That being said, we still have another week to go. So we still have enough time. And whether you file it on day one or whether you file it on the last day, the probability is exactly the same. The only thing for all is do not miss the deadline. Just get a confirmation from your employer at least before the last day that your registration is submitted, and doing so, your name is out there in the lottery, and you're not going to miss the deadline.
Absolutely. There you go, friends. You already have a tip there from Chan. So you can only imagine how benefited you're going to be, throughout this whole session today. And we are going to explore valuable insights and discuss many important steps to take further, maybe after the lottery process as well. So sit back, relax, and get ready for this engaging discussion we're going to have today. So without further ado, let's dive into today's topic. It is unlocking the H1B lottery, and we'll have insights and the next step in filing, of course. So, Chand, um, should we just go ahead and start off with these, covering something about the maintaining compliance with USCIS regulations throughout the filing process? So, how can applicants ensure compliance with USCIS regulations?
Sure. So the compliance with the regulations is very important. It ensures that you don't get into the trouble anytime in the future, because when you go to the consulate, they're seeing if you complied with the regulations. When you enter the country, the CBP, the Border Patrol, they are looking at the compliance. Anytime you apply for an extension, for a transfer, USCIS is heavily looking into your compliance with the regulations. So it's very important that everybody complies with whatever is required. And what that means to you in layman terms is you should know what the law is. You cannot say that I don't know what the law is. You have to know, you have to educate yourself with what the law is. And in this context, when we're talking about H1B filings, we're talking about H1B registrations, you have to be aware that uh, it's a legitimate job, it's a legitimate company, you have a bona fide offer, and the companies, whoever are doing the registrations, they actually make some attestations. So the companies who are doing the registrations, they have an additional burden. They have to make some attestations, and these attestations are there as a part of the registration. And it talks about colluding, it talks about bona fide job offer, and it ensures that they're actually wanting to hire these folks if they're selected in the lottery. So a company cannot just randomly put some people in the lottery without having a bona fide job offer. It is very important. It is also important that the employer, they look at the qualifications, look at the job, and make sure it's not a frivolous filing. If it's a frivolous filing, it's a problem. So on the compliance side, the employer has a lot more burden during the initial registration stage. It's because the company is the one that is actually attesting and signing off on these registrations. So the company has to ensure that certain things are done. Last year, we had a very, very big problem with multiple registrations. Hopefully this year, I don't think we will have that issue, because USCIS solved a major issue by going for a different process. Last year, the more number of registrations you have, more is the chance you have in the lottery. So there was a chance for people to misuse the system, and a lot of employers
Mhm.
unfortunately colluded, and USCIS showed through their data, showed through the data that they got too many multiple registrations. There was too much collusion going on, and last year was a problem. This year, hopefully, that problem will not be there. But again, companies have to be aware that they could not collude, and they have to be cautious. Also, in terms of compliance, a lot of the applicants who are going for this registration process, they're currently in US. And what that means is, if you're currently in US on F1 status, F1 OPT, or CPT, or maybe H4, maybe L1, L2, what it also means is you have to comply with the requirements of your visa. If you are somebody on OPT, STEM OPT, for example, you are supposed to work. You can't just stay at home. You have to work. So if you don't work, you're not complying with your F1 visa requirement. You are not maintaining your status. So for everybody who is entering into this registration process, if you are in US, ensure that you are maintaining your current status until the day your H1B gets approved, until your status changes over to H1. You are required to maintain your current status. So you have to be very, very cautious. Make sure you look at your I-94. Don't let your I-94 expire. Don't do anything that would make USCIS come back and say you're not maintaining status. Typical examples we see are somebody is supposed to work in OPT. If they're not working, USCIS could raise an RFE down the line. H4. If you're on H4, it is important that your spouse maintains H1. So if your spouse is not maintaining his H1, or you let your I-94 expire for H4, you're out of status. So same thing with L1, L2, all of them have certain requirements. So complying with the law basically means that look at your current visa status, ensure that you're doing whatever is required as per the terms of your visa, and doing so, tomorrow your H1B petition will not be jeopardized.
All right. Surely we will definitely delve into more details later, maybe some common mistakes and the delays and everything, Chance. But before we move into all that, let's give everyone an overview of the lottery that is going on, and the current H1B cap lottery system. How does this system function, and what are the primary components? Maybe in short, not too much, as people already have a good knowledge about what is going on. So maybe any current update, latest preview you can give us, and how these trends or changes impact applicant strategies, for filing H1B petitions. And if you think that these regulatory changes also impact the filing process and eligibility criteria for H1B petitions.
Sure. So in the current lottery process, the main important thing is only the employer can do the registrations. So if you are somebody who's a H1B potential H1B applicant, a beneficiary, the main thing to understand is you cannot put yourself in the lottery. Only the employer can put you in the lottery. And what that means is, in the current lottery system, you need to find an employer. You need to find an employer who's offering you a job. And once you have an employer who is offering you a job, that employer is the one that is supposed to register you in the USCIS portal. The employer is the one that will have access to the portal. every employer that needs H1Bs has to create this account. It is called my.uscis.gov. This is the portal that the employer will have to go and create an account, and employees will not have access to this portal. So tomorrow, your employer is the one that will create an account and register on your behalf. And this portal, the way it works is, it's a simple portal. You just have to put in the basic information, and the basic information is basically your passport information. They just have to put your passport information and just say whether you come in the master's quota or you come in the regular quota. If you have a valid US master's, they have to check a box that says US master's quota. If not, they will say you're coming under regular cap. So they just put passport information, they enter your data, and they simply click submit and pay $10 for each beneficiary. That's how simple it is. It's probably going to take 1 or 2 minutes to get into the website and add a registration. So overall, what that means is the current lottery system is meant for the employers to use. So the employers register how many other number of bona fide job offers they have, and they tell USCIS that they do intend to hire these beneficiaries. They pay $10 fee, and that's it. And what happens is USCIS is going to wait until March 22nd. 22nd is the cutoff. Once the deadline is crossed, they're going to look at all the registrations that have been submitted. And then if it crosses the required number, so we have 85,000 H1B slots. So 85,000 is the max slots that are available. If they get less than 85,000, there is no lottery. Everybody is selected. But we know from the past historical data, we also know from the current data, because we are doing a lot of registrations on behalf of our clients. So we know the kind of demand we are seeing. Definitely, it is going to exceed the 85,000 quota. The demand far outstrips whatever is available. So what that means is, tomorrow they will look at the unique. It's not the number of registrations, it is the number of unique beneficiaries. How do they know how many number of unique beneficiaries they have? All they have to look at is the unique passport numbers. So they're going to take all the unique passport numbers aside and randomly select 85,000 slots. And so what that means is they simply do a random lottery selection. They're not prioritizing on any particular aspect. It's a simple random lottery. 85,000 slots. And sometimes what they do is they choose more than 85,000. So last year they selected almost 100,000 initially. The reason for that is based on their historical data. They do understand that some people don't file. They do understand that some cases will be denied. So based on that, even though they understand that there are only 85,000 slots out there, usually they select a lot more than that. And last year, initially, they selected about 100,000 applicants. So this year, again, we think that about 100,000 beneficiaries would be selected in the initial lottery. So the simple logic is total number of unique people who have applied. From that, you can expect about 100,000 applicants to be selected. And whichever company has applied for that beneficiary, that company will get a notification. And that's how the company will be notified. Applicants will not be notified. So the way for the applicants to know is you have to contact your employer, and your employer will have to look into the portal and will confirm back to you. So there is no way where the public or the applicants can simply go to a website and check the status. You have to rely on your employers. Employers will know if somebody has been selected, and that is how you would know if you have been selected in the lottery or not in the current process.
Okay, very interesting. And I think that very well explained, I would say. And I'm sure people out there have a good overview of the H1B cap lottery system that is ongoing right now, a week down now already. And I'm sure it's going to catch up, and folks out there are getting ready to file theirs very soon. And let's move ahead, Chand, and maybe address some common challenges and misconceptions related to the lottery, if you can. And that applicants can face during the H1B lottery process? And are there any misconceptions about the lottery system that applicants should be aware of to avoid potential pitfalls?
Sure. But is the most common challenge is people think that you're selected in the lottery, it is over. Your case is approved. That's not the case. A lot depends on your employer. A lot depends on the job, what kind of a job they're offering, what kind of salary they're offering. So there's a lot more than
Right.
just getting selected in the lottery. So the most important challenge is finding the right employer, and that is where people sometimes
Mhm.
could make a mistake. So just because somebody is filing a registration doesn't mean that you're done. You really have to do some research on your employer. Make sure your employer is a legitimate employer. Make sure they don't cheat you, because I've had some cases, some people who come to me and say the employer promised that they're doing a registration. The employer even confirmed they did a registration, and later on they found that the employer did not even register. So there are some unscrupulous employers out there. Not everybody, it's a very minor percentage, but there are always those kind of employers. What that means from your perspective is do your due diligence. Make sure you do your background research. Make sure you know who you're accepting an offer with, and make sure the job they're giving to you, you're qualified for it, because you have to be qualified, and not any job qualifies for H1B. Okay, so this is where you'll have to do some due diligence, and make sure you talk to the employer. There's nothing wrong in getting your questions answered. So just talk to the employer, ask them what is, I mean, discuss about your job position, discuss about your job duties, and ensure that they're actually serious about sponsoring you. Because I've had some employers who did the registration in the last 3 4 years, and when it comes to the time for filing, they always panicked because they were scared of the economy. They were scared that things might go bad, and they did not file the actual petition. So what that means is make sure your employer has a definitive assignment. Tomorrow he's not going to come back and say, "Oh, the economy is bad, the market is bad, so I'm rescinding my offer." So make sure, which basically means you really have to talk to the employer and see how comfortable you are, how confident you are that they will actually do the actual filing. If it's an employer who uh, might not file based on the market conditions, if they don't have a stable assignment, a stable company, tomorrow you are at risk, because you can get selected in the lottery, but tomorrow if they do not file the actual H1B petition, it doesn't make any sense at all. So before accepting an offer, make sure you're 100% confident that the job offer is bona fide, and that the employer is actually going to go ahead with the process, the next step, and actually file the petition. H1B filing is
Mhm.
expensive. So a lot of employers, what they do is, um, sometimes because of the costs, I mean, the H1B can run anywhere between $2,000 to almost $10,000, depending on size of the company. Not every company pays the same for H1B. The government fee is very different. For a one company it could be very high, one company it can be very low, and they have three different slabs based on the kind of companies you have. So what that means is, for some companies the amount might not be that much. For some companies the government fees might be very exorbitant. So a lot of companies, sometimes we see, when they actually start doing the actual process, they chicken out and they're worried about spending thousands and thousands of dollars on the process. So for all the folks out here, the challenge is not only going through the lottery, but also making sure you go to the next step. So always, as a part of it, research with your company, talk to your company, and make sure it's a company that really is going to go ahead and actually file, and not somebody that will not really file even if you're selected in the lottery.
Right. Think of it like a very, very serious proposal. You know, you really have to put your thought into it. It's either a yes or a no. So you think about which employer you want to proceed with, and know for sure that they are meant for you. All the best, folks out there. And Chand, you know what? We have so many folks out there who have already joined us and dropped their comments, asking so many questions. So I'm very happy to greet them all in Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So, yes, thank you so much for joining, everyone, and keep commenting. We are going to take up your questions in the second half of this session before the webinar ends. So, a big hello to Saranya M, Neha S, Neha Shetty, Pavan Kumar, Mihira, Mirza, Najib Khan, um, and then we also have Amelia, Meena, Michael, Ankit, a big hello. Thank you so much for joining. Stay with us. We are going to take up your questions a little later. And we have with us Chand Parvataneti from SPB Law Firm, Dallas, Texas. And He's been here earlier as well, speaking with us about so many important immigration topics. So if you have questions to him directly as well, feel free to email him at law@spblawfirm.com and visit his website, spblawfirm.com. You can even call him and get in touch with him in his number, 817-523-8247. And yes, Chand, a big hello. You can say, you can greet our folks out there, viewers who are watching us right now.
Yeah, hello everybody. I see a lot of questions pop up, so I think definitely, once we start off with finishing these initial questions, let's answer everybody's questions and get it cleared up.
There you have the word from the attorney himself, folks. So stay with us. So, Chand, the H1B filing process after the lottery, could you provide a step-by-step guide to the H1B filing process post-lottery? What is going to happen, and maybe what are the key documentation requirements, deadlines, if any, that applicants need to keep in mind during this whole process?
Sure. So March 22nd is when the lottery will end. So that is the day when everything will finish. And USCIS says that before March 31st, they will give the lottery selections. But
Mhm.
normally, based on the past,
I think there's some technical difficulties on Chand's end. I do hope he connects with us soon. Yes, folks. So if you're also yourself, looking for project placement, maybe you want visas and green cards, exceptional benefits. So feel free to contact us. We are Hire IT people. Call us in the number 833-412-8472. And Chand is back. I'm glad. I think there's some connectivity issue, technical problems on your end, is it?
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry about that, but I think I'm back now.
cool.
Okay, so the bottom line is before March 31st, everybody will know the selections. And once you know the selections, that is when the real big part starts. And the real big part is basically the H1B filing. So the H1B filing, that is when petition, the entire petition, your credentials, your degree certificates, your passports, the company's credentials, the company's job duties, the LCA, which explains the wage and the title and everything. So all of that, which is the big part of the complex H1B filing, that is what will get started after March 31st. And from a deadline perspective, April 1st is when the process starts. So you cannot file before April 1st. So April 1st is theoretically the very first day that the filing can start. And June 30th is the deadline. So the file has to reach USCIS on June 30th. So anything before April 1st, they will not accept. Anything after June 30th, they will not accept. So all the filings
Mm.
need to be done between April 1st to June 30th. Number one. Number two, only the employer can file the petition. Employee cannot file the petition. So if somebody has a selection from company ABC, only company ABC can do the petition filing. You cannot transfer your lottery selection to another company. You cannot do that. Only the company, whichever company got a selection, that is the company that will do the actual H1B filing for you. So what that means is after April 1st, you are working with the company because the company has to provide you the LCA copy, provide you a couple of things. They have to gather a couple of documents from your side. You have to give them your documents. So there's a process, a
Mhm.
back and forth process. Typically, it's about a 2 week process. So once the company starts, in about 2 weeks, they can get the filing done. So from everybody's perspective, the first step is the company will start the petition filing by doing something called an LCA filing. So the labor condition application. So the LCA is mandatory document. So every company has to do an LCA filing with DOL. Number one. Number two, the companies are required to share the copy of LCA with the applicants before their start date. So it is very important. The company has to share the copy of the LCA. So there's nothing wrong. You can always talk to the company and say, hey, when are you going to give me the copy of the LCA? This is a mandatory document. It is not something the company has the luxury to say they cannot release. So whichever company is doing the H1B filing typically has to provide the LCA copy to you. That is the place where you know your work location, the place where you know your salary. Because tomorrow, you have to be compliant with H1B regulations. So you have to make sure you only work from that location and get paid as required. So overall, in terms of the step-by-step process, the company files LCA, company gathers all the documents from your side, the company gets everything formed, they sign the petition, file it with USCIS. That is what will happen in the month of April, May, and June. We typically don't recommend anybody to start off on day one itself because you don't really have to rush. At the same time,
Mhm.
we want people not to wait until June. Nothing has to be done in the month of April. You don't have to rush. But again, don't wait until June. Typically, anytime from last week of April to last week of May is the ideal time to apply for H1B. Definitely don't wait until June. So if your company is procrastinating and waiting until June, talk to the company. Ask the company to finish the process well ahead of time. The reason is at the last minute, you might have a lot of surprises. If it's a FedEx, maybe the FedEx get lost. If you're doing e-filing, maybe the website is not going to function on the last day. Maybe the website is slow. You never know what's going to happen at the last minute. Always give yourself 30 days before the deadline. The deadline is June 30th. Make sure your company files at least by May 30th. Okay, so that is the bottom line. It's a very short window, 90-day window. That being said, it's more than enough time. 2 weeks is probably what a company should require. So try to work with your companies and make sure your companies, once they have a selection, they at least get the filings done by May 30th.
Absolutely. That's a good tip as well. And I'm sure people are going to take it. Just hope that it's going to be I know it's going to be a busy month for all you attorneys out there as well in the month of May with this. So we have more questions coming in, but we'll take them up for sure. So folks, stay with us and let's move ahead, and if you could um, uh, navigate us through and tell us about some strategies for optimizing the filing process and increasing chances of success. So, how can folks out there increase their chances in the lottery? And are there any specific tips or best practices that applicants should consider when preparing for their H-1B petitions?
Sure. So the main thing is, I think when your employer is gathering the data for the lottery, because we started doing the filings in the last week, and what we are seeing is a lot of like the Indian applicants, they're giving the date formats wrong. US, when you do the registration, the format is month first, date second, year last. And on the Indian passports, we have the date first, month second. So a lot of people sometimes are giving wrong formatted dates. Dates are very important. The passport expiry date has to be put in the registration, number one. Number two, the names. Some people accidentally are putting wrong names. So, for example, uh, the first name is required, middle name is required, last name is required. If it's a blank, you can always say it's a blank. There is no middle name. You can always say that, but you have to be cautious that the name is accurate, no spelling mistakes. So ensure that you're working with your employer to ensure that there is absolutely no mistake. If possible, get the draft of your registration from your employer so you can revalidate your data. And normally, what we do in our side is we send the employers the data back and we say, hey, this is the draft. Before we file it, do a check. Okay, so it's always a good practice to check back with the employer, make sure your name and the dates are accurate. And the most important thing for this year, the passport number. The passport number is the key for your lottery. The passport number is what is used for the lottery. So even accidentally don't make a mistake with your passport number. If your passport number is wrong, tomorrow more than likely USCIS will reject your H1B filing, even if you're selected in the lottery. If that passport number does not match your passport, your selection will be invalid. So be extra cautious. Don't take it easy. The passport number is the most critical data point this year. So be 100% positive that the right passport number is used and used for your registration. And one a small minor issue, but we kind of commonly see is a lot of people, just because they have a US masters, they think they have a US masters and they say they have a US masters and they want the filing to be done in US masters category. However, there are some universities, not in US, qualifies for master's cap. If the university is a for-profit university, or if the university is not accredited, it does not qualify for master's cap. So it is very important. You should ensure that your university is a not-for-profit university. Your university is an accredited university. Majority of the universities, more than 90%, most of the time, they are accredited, they are not-for-profit. However, we are seeing a lot of universities in US. People come on F1 visa, they're on F1. These universities can admit F1 students. However, if they are for-profit universities, if they are for profit, you cannot come under master's. So you have to make sure you are registered in the lottery as regular cap, not as master's cap. So this is very, very important. And we are seeing some folks make the mistake just because they think that they got a degree from a US university, they think that they should be under master's cap. So what that means is, uh, make sure that your school, your university is not for profit school and accredited school. If it is a for-profit school, you have to ensure that you come under regular cap. Okay, so doing these things, at least your lottery process, you'll not see any surprises because the lottery is indeed a pretty simple process. It is these accidental mistakes that could cause, that could jeopardize your filing. But if not, the lottery process is very simple. And once this part is over, the main strategy I would say is recheck the draft. So check back with the employer, ask them to send you a copy of that draft. It's a little small snippet of your data. Because if something goes wrong, no problem. All you have to do is delete the registration, repay the $10 back again, and refile it. So right now, if there is a mistake, you can recover. All you have to do is pay the $10 fee again, delete the old one, re-register, and you're done. Okay, so right now you have time. So just make sure you don't make a mistake with any of those data entry issues.
Thank you so much, Chan, for those wonderful tips. And folks, remember your passport number is the most important thing to keep in mind. And when you're doing the filing, put your head 100% into it. There should be no mistakes. So, all the very best. Take your time. There is enough time, but go through the process correctly. And friends out there, we are going to take up all your questions. Thank you so much for joining in. Jadhav, Radhika, Merchant, stay with us. We are going to take up all your questions pretty soon. I have a couple more, but before that, we'll just go for a short break. And this is Chand Parvataneni with us, attorney from SPB Law Firm, Dallas, Texas. And feel free to contact him as well. Mail him in this address, law at spblawfirm.com, and visit his website, spblawfirm.com. And you can even call him in the number 817-523-8247. And also call me, friends, in my phone number, and that is displayed on the screen, 408-335-6444. You can even email me at nipa@hierarchypeople.com. And don't forget to visit our website, www.hierarchypeople.com. And don't go anywhere because we'll be unlocking more into the H1B lottery and get more insights from Chand Parvataneni here on Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. Don't go anywhere.
Are you an IT consultant seeking a new opportunity? We offer job placement services for US citizens, green cards, EADs, and visa holders. We also sponsor various work visas like H1B, E3, TN, and green cards. 20 plus years of experience in the industry, exceptional employee benefits, highly rated by our employees. Global presence with 200 plus recruiters and direct clients. Connect with us. Call us on the number 833-412-8472 or mail us at support@hierarchypeople.com or visit
Hello and welcome back, everyone, to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. I'm Napasa Pradhan, and today we are discussing and unlocking the H-1B lottery, getting more insights into it, and even discussing the next steps in filing. And we have none other than Attorney Chan Parvataneni from SPB Law Firm, Dallas, Texas, and we have already covered a little bit under the topic. We have had an overview on it and even discuss some of these strategies that could optimize the process. Then of course, some steps after the lottery, the common challenges, and now, Chand, I have a few more questions, and I would like you to navigate us through the complex scenarios. How could applicants address specific scenarios such as changes in employment, visa transfers, or even extensions post lottery? And are there any additional documentation or steps required for handling these complex scenarios effectively?
So the good thing is the US. So I think the main way they designed this process is they encourage portability. So what that means has an approval. If an employee has an approval, the employee is not stuck to that employer for the next 3 years because the H1B approvals come for 3 years. So each time the H1B is approved, in general, they're usually given for 3 years. So the way the law is designed is they don't expect somebody to be tied to a company forever. They don't. They want portability. They encourage portability because US is a land of opportunities. What that means is tomorrow, if they get a better opportunity, they can always explore and they can always move, which is the transfer. So the transfer process, it is designed in such a way that there is easy portability. And USCIS has made it very easy to transfer. So what that means is if some company wants to transfer, they can file a transfer and they don't have to wait until they get an approval. So right from the day somebody gets a transfer filed, they have a receipt. They are allowed to join this new company. So this portability is what makes it so easy. So the transfer is not challenging. It's not complex. However, the problem when you're talking about changes in employment, visa transfer or extensions, there are always a couple of things that one should pay attention to. Not every job qualifies for H1B. And what that typically means is there is this concept of specialty occupation. So if somebody is looking for a transfer, they have to ensure that this new company has a specialized position available for them. They are paying appropriate amount. So there are some things that are legally very important. If they are met, transfer is easy. If those are not met, transfer is very complex. Tomorrow you can get a denial for a transfer. So a transfer is not a guaranteed approval. A transfer also could get denied, which is why somebody, when they're getting a transfer offer, you have to be cautious. You have to again do your due diligence. What is the salary? What are the job duties? Where is this location? And so on. Very important. And again, another thing that you mentioned is changes in employment. Changes in employment is always a very important topic. The reason is there are very, very strict laws which say that, strict regulations that require the company to notify USCIS if there are any material changes. So not all changes need to be notified, but if there is a material change, if at all the change is material, the current regulations require the employer to file an amendment. So there is this process called H1B amendment. They have to refile the I-129. They have to redo the LCA. They have to again make a new offer with the new salary, and they have to refile the H1B. So this is called H1B amendment. And H1B amendment, again, it can be approved, it can be denied. And what that means is, again, from scratch, everything has to be documented and provided back to USCIS. So changes in employment is very important. Anytime there's a change in employment, maybe the location got changed, maybe the job duties got changed, maybe the job title got changed because somebody got a promotion, or there is some other change. Always look and see if the change is material, because not all changes are material. If somebody moves from one client in Dallas to a new client in Dallas, that might not be material change. So some changes are material. If somebody changes a client from a Dallas client to a client that is in Austin, they're changing their work location from Dallas to Austin. That change could be material because it's a location change that's more than 50 miles. So the changes in employment are something that are of concern. Even if it's a small change, always go back, discuss with the employer, discuss with your company's attorney, and always see if an amendment is required to be filed. Because if an amendment is required and an amendment is not filed, tomorrow the employee, when you file for an extension, you might get a denial. When you go for a visa stamping, you might get a denial. So if the amendments are not appropriately filed, you run the risk of future denials. So this is very important that any changes in employment are carefully documented and analyzed Because if an amendment is required, you file the amendment. If an amendment is not required, at least document why it is not required and then move ahead. So changes in employment, be extremely cautious, because it is not about only getting the initial approval in the lottery, but even down the line, you want to make sure your career is secure. And what that means is, changes in employment, always be cautious. And then extensions. Again, when you file for an extension, so you get an approval for 3 years. So you go through the lottery, you file for, the company files for the H1B, the case gets approved for 3 years. And at the end of 3 years, the company will have to do an extension. They have to extend your H1B. And what that means is, again, when you file for an extension, the company has to pay the government fees. The company has to do the LCA, has to provide all the documents back to USCIS once again, and prove that you're maintaining status. So again, it's a filing. So there's a little bit of complexity involved. But again, there is also a burden to prove that any changes are documented and everything is by the book. Doing so, you'll not have a problem. But again, these are all things that are a part of the H1B career. So make sure anytime you're going through a change in employment, a transfer, or a future extension after 3 years, all of these are done right. Being done in the right way, you'll be fine. It's not complex, but again, just make sure your company is doing it right, because some companies forget to file extensions. There are deadlines. Some companies forget to file amendments, and they come to us and we see an issue. There are site visits. During site visits, something gets told by the officer. The officer will state that you have not filed an amendment. They might issue a NOIR, notice of intent to revoke. They might revoke the base petition. So if you don't follow the regulations, tomorrow there is a big risk of your initial H1B getting revoked, the base petition getting revoked. So it is highly important that you go through the process very, very carefully and document all the changes in employment. And if there's a transfer, make sure the transfer is a good transfer. The company is a good company, is making a good offer. And doing all those things, your H1B will be safe. And understand that H1B is a non-immigrant visa. It's a temporary visa. And that basically means that you have to keep on getting it renewed. And what that means is, every time you go for a renewal, either in US or in India at the consulate for your visa, at all these steps, they check for everything. They check for your initial approval. They check for your status in between, any changes in employment, and all those things. And if they find that you have not maintained your status or did anything against the regulation, you have a risk. Okay, so just educate yourself with all the rules and regulations. And I think a show like this is your best opportunity to gain knowledge and make sure you use it in your career. And doing so, you're going to have a very good, successful career in US.
Thank you so much, Anne, for that very, uh, good compliment. And thank you, folks, as well, for joining in to and tuning into our channel, Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. Don't forget to subscribe for more such updates and insights and tips from experts like Chand himself. So, Chand, I got a couple more to go ahead and maybe talking about uh, the handling requests for evidence, the RFEs, and denials effectively. If you could just give a few steps to what could applicants take if they receive a request for evidence, an RFE, and can you provide guidance on how to respond to RFEs or denials to increase their chances of petition approval?
Sure. So the company will file the H1B. There are two things that could happen. The case could get approved, or the case will not get denied. What will happen is, if the evidence is not enough, in general, uh, you get something called request for evidence. Denial, direct denial, is very, very rare, extremely rare in H1B world. So in general, USCIS will always give you an opportunity, and they issue something called a request for evidence. In the request for evidence, they will say what is it that your petition is lacking, and it will give you an opportunity to respond back. Most of the time, you have 87 days, almost 3 months to respond. And what that means is, once you get an RFE, your employer is going through the RFE. They have to make sure that they understand what is going through. They should know what is it that your petition is lacking. And sometimes, even if your petition has everything, you might still get an RFE. So just because you got an RFE does not mean something bad has happened. But RFE is your chance to go through and see what other additional evidence does USCIS require. Sometimes it could be very simple. Sometimes it could be as simple as, hey, just attach your last few pastes or sometimes it could be as simple as please send your 983 along with proof that you complied with STEM OPT regulations. Sometimes it might be more than that. Sometimes it might be, can you provide us your evaluation copy, not just your mark sheet, but also your evaluation copy. And so it could be various things. So the first key thing is the minute you get an RFE, open the notice, go through the notice and see what is it that is being requested. And normally for all the cases that we have, what we do is we summarize and let the employer know this is what is requested by USCIS. And the same thing. So the employer will have an opportunity to go through the RFE and see what exactly is being requested and respond back in a legal format. So basically respond back and explain why your evidence meets the burden of proof. That is important. And that is a part of RFE response. And USCIS understands that these things take time, which is why they give 87 days. So 3 months is good enough time. They will not extend it. And you cannot expect any extension. And what that means is from the day you get the RFE, you're on top of it. You're on top of collecting the evidence and drafting the RFE response. In general, I typically never see a challenge with the deadline because most of the time the companies think that 87 days is well enough time, and most of the time they provide documents well ahead of time. And by gathering all the documents, ensuring that each and every issue that is raised in the RFE is responded back to, you should be able to get an approval. And majority of the cases do get approved. So even though you get an RFE, denials are pretty rare in the H1B world nowadays. So more than likely, you'll be able to document, provide all the documents back to USCIS, and hopefully the cases will get approved.
Absolutely, me too. All the best, folks, and I hope that you get lucky in this lottery for sure. So, Chand, we already covered about maintaining compliance with USCIS regulations throughout the filing process and right in the beginning of the webinar today. And also, folks, the what Chand was speaking earlier about the STEM OPT, the RFEs. We've already had two webinars earlier with Chand himself explaining everything thoroughly. So I hope that you definitely go back and watch our episodes, and they're going to benefit you for sure. So we are Immigration and Jobs Talk Show on YouTube, LinkedIn, and even on Facebook. Don't forget to subscribe. So, yes, you had touched on the compliance, the regulations throughout the filing process. Uh, do you think there are common mistakes, and maybe maybe a short tip since we already covered this for the folks out there?
I think in terms of employees, I think just coordinate with your employers. Make sure you provide everything that they ask for. And if you do not have anything, just kind of let them know why you don't have them. Because sometimes when USCIS issues an RFE and they're requesting a certain document, there is a good reason why they're asking it. And if you're not able to provide it, there should be a proper legal response, and sometimes maybe an alternate way of providing that evidence. So it is very important. Sometimes if the RFE is asking for something and you're not able to provide it, I think you should discuss with your employer on what the alternatives are. Those don't just don't ignore requests for certain document, because even a small document which might look very trivial might have a lot of legal importance. So just always when you get an RFE, RFEs will get approved as long as you provide the documents. If you don't provide the documents because you don't have the document, at least you should provide an explanation and try to provide any other documents that would satisfy the burden of proof. The burden of proof by USCIS standards is preponderance of evidence. And what that means is, in the legal world, the burden of proof is very low burden of proof. We are not trying to prove anything beyond clear and convincing evidence. So in criminal law, the evidence requirement is very, very high. In USCIS, in the immigration world, the burden of proof is a low requirement. And what that means is we have to prove that more than likely what you're providing is true. So, and again, this is a legal concept called preponderance of evidence. But what that means is sometimes if you don't have the document they have requested, there might be a lot of other alternative ways to prove your case. And that is something what you have to discuss with your employer when there is an RFE, or your attorney, and ensure that at least you're meeting that burden of proof, even though you don't have that exact document that has been requested.
True, true. And yeah, I can see Harry commenting. He has questions. We're totally going to come back to you, Harry. Just stay with us. And one last thing, Chant, from my end, for folks out there, is if you could cover the strategies for adapting and to the evolving immigration policies and procedures, on the ongoing changes in the immigration policies. What proactive measures can applicants take to adapt and navigate the H-1B filing process successfully? And are there any resources or channels applicants can utilize to stay updated on the latest developments in immigration procedures and policies?
Sure. So I think the very first resource I would say is uscis.gov. They have a news section and they keep putting news items out there, and that is the best place to start off with. And then the next best place is shows like this, community forums, where their employer, places where changes in law or where you get some information on changes in law. USCIS is a good resource because a lot of updates they keep getting published in USCIS. Not only will you know when rule gets changed, sometimes you'll also know about future changes. For example, recently in October of last year, DHS they published a draft proposal in the Federal Registrar. They were talking about a whole bunch of changes to the H-1B program. So if you're paying attention, you would already know what is going to change well ahead of time, because the way the Administrative Procedures Act, the APA, works is before any rule changes are finalized, they have to follow a process. They have to publish a draft version. They have to let the general public, people like us, take a look at it and comment on the changes. So there is a big process before a rule is actually made. So what that means is, if you're paying attention to all these news avenues, you'll be able to know even before the change is going to happen. We know that USCIS is trying to change the definition of bona fide job offer, change the definition of specialty occupation, change the requirement of cap gap, and so many things. Because how do we know? Because the draft has already been published a few months back in the Federal Registrar. It is not final yet, but we know at some point of time USCIS will come up with some final rules. They'll publish the final rule in the Federal Registrar again when the time comes. So what it means is, this is a very dynamic, the H1B is a very dynamic program. They keep on adapting to the requirement, to the changes. So rules keep on changing. And there were a lot of memos. In 2010, we had this employer-employee relationship. In 2018, we had this availability of specialty occupation work, and this memo, contracts and itineraries memo. And what that meant is people, instead of getting 3 years approval, they started getting reduced approvals. Again, in 2020, we had a different memo where they said client letters are not required. So things keep changing. This is a very dynamic program, the H1B program. Rules will always keep on changing. So always be aware of the rule changes. And even this year, we know a lot of rule changes are in the pipeline. And I expect to see something in the fourth quarter, more than likely. And what that means is, sometimes the changes are good, sometimes the changes are bad. But changes are going to happen, and all of us have to be ready. Goal, and everybody's goal should be, if there is a rule change, we are still complying with the law. Our goal is still 100% compliance with the new rule changes. And knowing the law is the first step to reacting and making sure we comply with the law.
Absolutely. And remember, friends, comply with the law, stay updated, and definitely, subscribe to our channel for more updates on immigration news and latest updates for sure. And of course, you're going to benefit from all these shows. Thank you so much, Chan, for covering that topic, H1B lottery, and giving insights and even the steps in filing. And thank you.
Sure. Yeah. I think probably questions. Maybe I think a lot of viewers have questions. Maybe we can get
Yes,
started.
I was just going through. Yes, let's move. Let's go jump onto them. So we have Harry, and he says, my H-1B visa was approved but withdrawn due to NOAA from employer. AI transferred to employer B successfully. I have not received any further notices regarding my current H-1B. Okay,
Okay.
employer A. Sorry, I made a mistake in saying that. So he's asking, I'm concerned about future amendments, transfers, or extensions, considering applying for this year's H-1B visa through consular processing. Is this a viable option, or if there are any alternative approach?
So I think we have seen so Noir. So even after the case is approved, if there is a material issue with the initial filing, USCIS can always issue a notice of intent to revoke a Noir, and then
No.
based on the response from the employer, they can always revoke the H1B. And in general, if the base petition, the very first H1B gets revoked by USCIS because of any fraud or misrepresentation, the future filings are always at risk. So I think what uh, this applicant, what has happened is he's got a NOIR from his previous employer, and but again, I think at some point he transferred to a new employer. But again, depending on what happened with his initial employer's petition, if the initial petition got revoked due to misrepresentation or fraud, he could definitely have a problem. How do you resolve it? The way I say is, if the base petition gets revoked, you probably have to go through the lottery once again and get selected in the lottery and go for a fresh filing. That is the safest way to ensure that you don't have any issues with the previous filing that has already happened. Because what is happening is, if your employer has done some mistake, it is not going to come and hurt you in one way. So USCIS will not say that you have done anything wrong. But what they could say is, because you are dependent on the initial employer's initial base petition, you're not cap exempt anymore. So we have seen USCIS come back and say, you have not done anything wrong, but you're not cap exempt. I've had a couple of these cases where they said the employee is not cap exempt because the previous filing was revoked due to a misrepresentation or fraud. So talk to your employer. If the previous employer confirms that the case was revoked due to misrepresentation or fraud, definitely go through a new lottery, go through a genuine company, get an approval, and again start off. Otherwise, you will not be cap exempt. And at some point down the line during your extension, they can come back and always claim that you're not cap exempt.
Okay, Harry, I hope you go for it and waste no time. Let's take up another one. This one is from Varun, and Varun is asking, I am experienced professional on F1, will graduate this year, December. Can I participate in the H1B process this year?
Sure. Again, even if somebody's on F1, their F1 program is not completed yet, understand that the minimum requirement for H1B is a bachelor's degree. It is not a master's degree. So as long as anybody has at least a bachelor's degree, even if your master's program, you're still studying master's degree, you did not graduate master's degree, that is okay. Your company can still sponsor a H1B for you based on your bachelor's degree. So if you do have a bachelor's or a bachelor's equivalent, even though you are currently on an F1 program, even though you have not graduated in the current program, if you have any relevant bachelors in the past, your employer can still put you in the lottery. Only thing is, they will put you in regular cap instead of master's cap.
Okay, Varun, I hope you got your answer. And now let's take up this one from Mihira. Is it okay to have two employers to file an H1B?
Okay, so last year again, the multiple registrations was a big issue,
Right.
and the USCIS rule is two independent companies having two independent job offers are good to make are good to file on your behalf. So today, if you have, say for example, Microsoft give you an offer, and you have Google give you an offer, we know both companies are legitimate. We know both companies have valid offers for you. If that is the case, yes, it is okay to have two employers file an H1B. However, if the two companies are colluding or doing something to game the lottery, for example, uh, 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 there's company A, company B. They might not be there colluding with each other. Maybe there is only one job. Say you have a contract with, say, for example, just as an example, say you have a contract with Infosys, and you have two consulting companies, and both of them come to an understanding that let's both of us file, but in the end, your job is the Infosys gig, for example, and they're going to place you in that project. In that case, there is no bona fide offer from both the companies. There is only one bona fide offer. So when you say you have two employers, it is legal if the two employers are completely independent, they're not colluding and working with each other, and there are genuine jobs with each of the employers. If that is the case, yes, it is okay. If that is not the case, if you're trying to do something to game the lottery system or trying to manipulate the lottery system, you should not do it. Okay, so there are ways where it is legal, there are ways where it is not legal. And that being said, this year it is a beneficiary centric lottery process. What that means is, no matter how many companies register for you, say in case you have Google and Microsoft file for you, it is legal, it is legitimate. Both of them are independent, they can file on your behalf. But you will not have any additional benefit because this year they're going through the beneficiary centric process, and they will use your passport. So you will not have any additional advantage. But if the companies are truly independent and bona fide, yes, they are okay to file.
All right. And Varun, earlier we had a question taken up, and he's following up saying this is not related to above, I guess, which
Uh,
was
I'm not
anyway.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, me too, Varun. So if you're there listening, if you could, I mean, form your question properly, and we could take it up. We are here. Mirza is asking, can I apply for H1B or J1 visa while my H4 extension is processing? I am currently in US with a valid H4 status that expires in July.
Sure. So every year we have a lot of people who are on H4 and they do apply for H1B because they have an offer from an employer and the employer wants to convert them from H4 to H1. So it is completely legal. It's completely good to do so. The only thing is, in your case, you said the H4 status expires in July. So what that means is, just before July, make sure you apply for the H4 extension, because until October 1st, you have to be in status. And what that means is, if your status expires before October 1st, make sure you file an extension. So as long as you file for your H4 extension before July to cover the period from July to October, you are fine, and your employer can file a H1B.
All right, Mirza, I hope you got your answer. And now let's follow another one, taking up quickly some of the questions. Najib Khan on YouTube asking, I have been laid off and I am at the end of H1B grace period, seeking COS to B1, B2. If no job in 6 months, can I use an H1B to re-enter US or enter the lottery again? H1B stamp valid till March 2025.
So, because he still has H1B stamp valid, I'm assuming that he has not completed his 6 years of H1. So, in case you're at the end of the grace period, and if you file for change of status to B1 B2, and again, B1 B2 max is 6 months, which is why I think he put in that 6 months. So within 6 months, if he gets a job, the company can file a H1B. So that's probably the easiest option. In case he does not get a job in the next 6 months, he would have to leave the country. So he goes out of the country. But then down the line, whenever he finds an employer, that employer can file H1B. And once he gets an approval, he can come back. The good thing is, in this case, the H1B stamp is valid until March 2025. So before March 2025, if he gets an approval from another company, he can simply use this existing H1B visa and he can enter the US. So he does not have to even go for the new stamping. He can reuse this existing stamp and simply come back to US.
Okay. Chand, I hope you can hang out with us for a couple more minutes. We'll take up a couple more questions.
Sure, sure,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So this one's from Radhika asking, can my employer start the GC process, PWD, and so on, while my H1B is pending approval?
Definitely. So, a company, an employer can start this process, which starts off with the prevailing wage determination, the PWD. So, the PWD and everything, they can start even if the H1B is pending. It can even start if somebody is not even employed, because green card can be done for future employment. So, sometimes even if the employer does not start employment yet, technically the company can still start the process. And also, if somebody is on F1, maybe on OPT, if they have an employer, that employer can start the GC process even when somebody is on F1 on OPT status. So check with your employer, and there are a lot of ways, and yes, it can be done.
Great. All the best, Radhika. And now let's take up this next one from Jadav. What are the next steps to take after being selected in the H1B lottery? How can I manage my H1B application timeline, and what are the critical deadlines to meet?
So the main deadline is June 30th. So June 30th is the deadline because any application, any H1B petition after that date will be rejected. So what that means is you are working with your employer and making sure the employer files your petition way ahead of the deadline. So deadline is June 30th, but definitely don't wait until June 30th. Make sure, try to work with your employer to at least have your case out by May 30th. Before June 30th,
Right.
you should have the receipt in hand. If you don't have the receipt in hand, there is a problem. So at least get started as quickly as possible from April 1st. Try to have your employer file the petition at least by May 30th, because doing so, at least by June 30th, you'll have the receipt in hand. And as long as you have the receipt in hand before June 30th, you are good because the H1B has been filed.
Absolutely. And Jadav, this whole webinar is going to be posted permanently on our channel. Chand has taken up this question and even, detailed and answered to many questions regarding this. So please watch the whole session again. And let's take up this next one. This one is from Ankit. Can I apply for both the green card lottery and the H1B lottery simultaneously? I applied for the green card lottery last year, but now want to apply for the H1B visa lottery. Is it possible?
Sure. Again, in the H1B lottery, the important thing is the employer is the one that will do your filing. So as long as you have a valid employer and that employer is offering you a job, that employer can put you in the H1B lottery. It is valid and there is nothing wrong about it.
Great. And this one is also on YouTube from Amelia. Is the H1B lottery totally a luck favored result or point based thing? If point based, what is the minimum score to achieve?
So as of right now, the current process is a luck favored result. So everybody will have the same chance because it is based on the passport number. So everybody's passport is unique. So every passport will pretty much have the same exact chance as another passport in that particular category. It is not point based, but there was a proposal about 2 years back, and they wanted to use the salary. So the salary being offered as the criteria for the lottery selection. It did not go through. It is still a proposal, but again, at this point of time, it is completely a luck favored result, and everybody's chances are exactly the same. Whether your company is a small company or whether it's a big company, whether you have a very high salary or the minimal salary, everybody has the exact same chances. The only difference is if you're in master's quota, you have that little extra chance because of that master's quota. But if not, everybody pretty much has the same exact chance.
Okay, so I hope that luck favors you this time, Amelia. And now this one is from Govind Dash. On what basis the lottery will on passport number, and what will be chances of getting the lottery for 2025 predictions?
So, it's solely based on the passport number. So passport number is unique. Nobody can have say because the country and the passport number are unique combination. So for a particular country, you can only have a unique passport number. So they're going to use the country and the passport number as the unique key, more than likely. And based on that, since everybody is unique, everybody's chances should be unique based on the passport number and the country that issued the passport. And that being said, I think we are seeing a lot of demand. I mean, again, we're not seeing any reduced demand. I do think at least you should see anywhere between 250,000 to at least 350,000 registrations. So definitely, I think I expect a lottery for sure, and I think it will be oversubscribed by pretty much a lot, because we know we have 85,000 slots, and typically USCIS selects about 100,000 for those 85,000 because they understand that some people will drop off, some people might be denied, and so on. So for about 100,000 slots, I at least think it'll be oversubscribed. So definitely, I think at least 250,000 to 350,000 is what I'm anticipating.
Okay, and very soon we are going to get to know how many people have applied for the lottery. The last date is the 22nd of March, right, Chan?
That is correct. It's getting close, so we have about another week. So March 22nd, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So not much time.
All right. So, friends, definitely all the best, I would say. And thank you so much, Chant, once again for joining us today in this very, very informative session we had with you covering the H1B lottery. And thank you for the insights and also, giving us some tips into what steps we could take in the whole process. So, thank you so much for joining us today, Chant.
Thank you so much, Nipasa. Have a good day, and have a good day, everybody.
You too. You too. Have a good day. And friends out there, thank you so much for tuning in today to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. I'm very happy and I hope that you had a wonderful session with us. Definitely don't forget to watch this whole webinar. It's going to be posted permanently on our channel. Subscribe, hit the bell icon so that you will be updated whenever we have sessions like this. And that was Chan Parvataneni. If you have questions to the attorney directly as well, don't forget to email him at law@spblawfirm.com. And that was Chand Parvatneni. You can even call him in the number 817-523-8247 and even visit his website at spblawfirm.com. You can even email me at nipa@higherITpeople.com and call me in the number 408-335-6444 and visit our website www.higherITpeople.com. We deal with project placements, green cards, E3 visas, everything immigration related. So feel free to contact us, ask questions. We'll be very happy to get to you. And yes, this is Nipasa Pradhan on Immigrations and Jobs Talk Show. Thank you so much for joining in today. We are going to see you again very soon. So stay with us and stay tuned to our channel. Have a great day ahead.
Are you an IT consultant seeking a new opportunity? We offer job placement services for US citizens, green cards, EADs, and visa holders. We also sponsor various work visas like H1B, E3, TN, and green cards. 20 plus years of experience in the industry. Exceptional employee benefits. Highly rated by our employees. Global presence with 200 plus recruiters and direct clients. Connect with us. Call us on the number 833-412-8472 or mail us at support@higheritpeople.com or visit our website www.higheritpeople.com.